today we're gonna do another Christmas cookie video, and this time I'm gonna be doing frosted sugar cookies. I'm even gonna make some royal icing, which I've never done before. But first we have to start with making the cookies. This recipe I just looked up online. I didn't have one already for it. I am gonna do a rolled sugar cookie dough, so we're gonna make the dough, roll it out, and then use cookie cutters to cut out different shapes, and then bake them, and then you ice them afterwards. Let's get started making the cookie dough. The first step is to sift cake flour, baking powder, and salt together into a bowl. I have those already measured out over here like usual. For the cake flour, it says do not use self-rising flour. I don't know what that is. I made sure to go and get actual cake flour and not use my regular all-purpose. So it says 2.5 cups of cake flour, so I have that right here. Almost overfilled my bowl, but we got it. And then we need 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and we need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm using my go-to pink Himalayan salt just because that's what I have. I don't really buy regular salt anymore because apparently there's vitamins in the pink salt, so let's go for it. So we're just gonna sift that together in this bowl, and then we'll move on to the next step from there. All right, that's all sifted together, so I'm just gonna set that aside for now. And then the next step is to beat the butter and sugar together in a large bowl on medium-high until light and fluffy, about 5 minutes. So for the butter, we need 2 sticks of unsalted butter. I always use unsalted butter, but I know some people just have salted on hand. I'm pretty sure you could use either one for like a cookie recipe, just don't add extra salt in the flour. I'm not positive that that's okay, but I don't see why it would hurt. It's up to you. So then we need sugar, and I measured out my 3/4 cup of sugar right here. All right, so we're gonna beat those together till it's light and fluffy, which always looks so tasty. Oh, and I'm just gonna use the whisk attachment because I feel like that gives a better like whip to it. And then when I start mixing in the flour, I'll switch over to my rubber scraper paddle. All right, the sugar and the butter is mixed together. It's very light and fluffy, as you can see. So now our next step is to add in 1 egg, and the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, but I'm gonna use almond extract just because I like almond flavoring a little bit better. We're gonna try that in these cookies and see if it turns out good. I think it's gonna be delicious. So we're just gonna mix that up until it's all incorporated. And then since I'm not using the paddle scraper quite yet, I'm gonna use this to just scrape the sides of my bowl. And then it's pretty stuck to my beater, so I'm just gonna scrape it out of there and then switch to the paddle with the scraper on it. Okay, and now we need to add in the flour. And like always, do it gradually so that it doesn't make a mess all over the kitchen. You know what? I always forget that I have this little handy dandy guy. This just sits on top of your bowl and acts as like a guard so things don't fly all over the place. I feel like it's not like a super tight fit though, so I don't ever really use it, but let's try it. And then supposedly you're supposed to be able to just pour it right in here. I didn't have much left, but see, it sticks to this. And then the next thing on our little recipe list is to separate the dough into 2 balls essentially on plastic wrap, and then wrap them, shape them into discs, like I'm assuming like a hockey puck kind of shape, and then put them in the fridge for an hour. Super even amounts, just like roughly even, because you're gonna end up rolling both out anyway. You just do one at a time, and you keep the other one in the fridge while you work with the first one. That way you always have dough ready to go. I feel like this dough is really soft, and I'm kind of nervous, just so you know how I feel. If something goes wrong, we could just say that I knew it. All right, so these are both gonna go in the fridge for at least an hour, and then we'll come back out and roll the dough. The dough has been chilling for over an hour, just over an hour. The recipe now says to roll out the dough on a floured surface, and I'm just gonna use that same cake flour just in case the regular flour does something weird. So I'm gonna dust my surface with that, dust my rolling pin with that, and then I'm gonna use these really fancy circular cookie cutters, because that's all I have, to make cookies, and I'll probably make them into like Christmas ornaments or Christmas wreaths, stuff like that. I'm not really sure. We're just gonna have fun with it. So let's get rolling. I am gonna use this little teeny sifter that I have to kind of give me an even layer of flour. When I usually just pour the flour on there and then rub it around with my hands, I feel like I don't do very good. So we'll see what this does. Okay, it says to roll it about 1/8 of an inch thick, so I think I have 1/8 of an inch thickness on this little rollout. It's not as much dough as I thought. I thought that I was gonna have a lot more, but I'm glad because I don't want to have that many cookies since I'll probably be making more cookies next week. We're gonna start cutting out my circles, and I'm gonna do a mixture of this size, which is I think 2.5 inches, and then this one, which is like 3.5 or 4, and then load them up on these baking sheets over here. A big fan of wasting things. If you know me at all, you know this. Even though this dough right here has a little bit more flour worked into it, I'm still gonna roll it back up in this plastic wrap and put it back in the fridge. It is really soft now, so I'm gonna put it in the fridge so it'll firm up a bit. And then I will start working on the other disc of dough, load up the next sheet, and then I'll probably put that batch into the oven, and then we will get to these afterwards. So it might make a little bit different texture of a cookie. I'm not really sure. So we'll see what the difference with those come out to be. All right, now what we have to do is put the cutout cookies that are not yet baked into the fridge to chill for 30 minutes, and I feel like that just firms them up so that the butter doesn't melt and spread the cookies out in the baking process. All right, I just preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and I'm gonna bake the 2 racks of cookies that I have. I do have it on the convection setting. If you don't have that, make sure you rotate the cookies halfway through the time so that way they get an even bake. If you have the convection setting, I don't think it's very important because it's constantly moving the air, so you should be fine. Alright, so those are going to be in there for 13 minutes. It says 13 to 15. If they don't look golden after the 13, just leave them in there for a couple minutes more. So those will be done in 13 minutes, and then they need to cool on the pan for 5 minutes, and then you remove them, put them on your wire racks, and then they stay there until they're completely room temperature, because you don't want to put the royal icing on a warm cookie because I've never done it. So I'm assuming it messes with the icing and the icing can like melt off of it, but we'll get there when we get there. So it's the next day, and I baked all the cookies. Some of them are a little bit more well done than the others. And now we're gonna make the icing. I've never made royal icing before, so we can learn together. Unless you already know how to make royal icing, then you can watch me make all the mistakes. First, we need a pound of powdered sugar, and then some recipes you can use egg whites, but I found one that uses this stuff, which is meringue powder, which is basically dehydrated egg whites, which sounds a lot easier, so we're gonna do that. So we needed 1 pound of powdered sugar, and then this calls for 2 tablespoons, I think. Yeah, 2 tablespoons of meringue powder, and then we need to mix those together. And I'm just gonna use a whisk for this so that way it doesn't make a huge mess all over my kitchen. I can kind of control some of the dough. Okay, I feel like that's pretty mixed. And then our next step is to add 5 tablespoons of water. And it says to beat with the mixer on medium-high speed until soft and glossy peaks form. I'll probably just use a hand mixer for that, but first we need to add the water to our bowl. So I just have a little cup of water here that I'm gonna measure 5 tablespoons. Really thick. The recipe does say to add up to 1 more tablespoon of water if necessary. So I think I'm gonna add a little bit more water, probably just like a half a tablespoon first, and see what that does. So now it's time to decide what the heck we want to do for decorating these cookies. I'm not really sure, but I think I'm gonna do like a white background and then do red and green detailing on them. I'm not super artistic, so if they turn out bad, I warned you. And then the way that royal icing works is that we have to do a border with this thicker icing, and then we water it down a little bit and kind of flood them, I guess. And that is when you can do decorations during the flooding, or you can let that dry and do more decorations on top of it. The cookies smell really good, so that's good news. And I have more cookies than what fits on my rack. Okay, so I'm gonna use the little piping bag that I got for Greg's birthday cake, so that's coming in handy again. And we're gonna use, it's like a little teeny round tip to do the border, and then I think you could use the same tip to do the flooding, but we just need to water down the icing when we do that. But we'll do the borders on all of these first really quick. It's already starting to dry, which makes me nervous. so that it says the consistency of syrup. And just add a little bit of water until we get there. And then I'm gonna separate a couple of bowls out and dye them red and green. I think I'm just gonna do red and green and leave it with that because I don't wanna do too many piping bags. And I only have one tip, so we're gonna just do two. So I'm just gonna scoop a little bit into each one of these bowls and then mix it with a spoon. And then we'll set those aside and do all of the white first. All right, I think that that's good enough. I'm just gonna wrap the bowls of the colored icing with some saran wrap so they don't dry out. Harder than I thought it was, but I think it's going great. All right, I did it. I'm all done. That was way messier than I thought it would be and a lot more difficult, but we did it. They're not pretty, but I hope they taste good. The next step is to let them dry. At first, I felt like I had not enough icing. Then I felt like I had too much, and then I definitely didn't have enough icing, but it turned out to be a good amount, so I feel happy with it. I was putting too much icing for the flooding. You're actually supposed to use a little spatula and push it around, and I wasn't doing that. I was just filling it with icing, so a couple of them are like so close to overflowing. I'm happy. I'll probably try it again and do it a different way. Back in the day when I worked at that bakery, I remember doing, I don't know if it was royal icing. It behaved the same way as this. And we had like a big bowl like I was using, like one of these, filled with the white icing. And then you put drops of food coloring on top and kind of spin it around with a skewer and just on top, not like mixing it in. And then it gives it like a tie-dye effect, and you just take the cookie upside down and dip it and then let it dry. So maybe I'll do that next time if I ever decide to try this again. But yeah, the people who do like intricate drawings and like actually make it look like something, wow. I hope you enjoyed watching me make these cookies, and if you want to see more from me, go ahead and subscribe or follow me here and give this video a thumbs up for me so that more people will see it. So thanks again, and I will see you next week, hopefully with another cookie recipe. How do you do it without getting icing everywhere?